Perfect. So, welcome everyone. We're really excited to see so many people in our very first event where we're going to share the stories, founder stories, and the goal why we are doing this and the purpose why we are doing this online event is just because so that we know that we are not alone. This usually there is this thing that founders are chasing one thing. It's really hard for other people to understand their passion, and that's why the road could be lonely sometimes. And the reason why we are doing this so that we know that there are people just like us going through similar struggles that we are doing, and just know what they're going through and how it can help us in our journey. So welcome everyone. My name is Devarshi Desai. I am the community manager for Catalysr. For those people who don't know what Catalysr is a startup incubator for migrants and refugees. And the whole purpose is that it's really hard to come to a different country, see a problem, try to solve it, and then commercialize it as well. It's something that just doesn't happen on a daily basis, or not something that everybody wants to do. If we are in the country that we were born in, probably we would have a lot more contacts. We would have our relatives and everything else. But then, migrants starting a startup is coming to a different country and trying to solve a problem. So I'm really glad that all of you guys are so excited and for this event, and you guys are interested in startups. So thank you so much for being here. As I told you, we're just going to keep this conversation quite casual and very intimate. So if you guys have any questions at any point of time, feel free to write it in the chat box. Today we have Tony and Ariana with us. You guys, if you guys can just wave so that everybody knows. Awesome. And we have certain questions listed, and I'm going to ask those questions, and it revolves around their journey, where they come from, how hard it was, how did they find their co-founders, why are they doing what they're doing, and stuff like that. So let's dive right into it. So awesome. Tony and Ariana, let's start with why don't you tell us about your background, where you're from, and how long have you been in Australia?
Shall I take the lead? Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Arianna. Just wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land of the country in which I'm on today, which are the Kaurna people I'm here in Adelaide, and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and also emerging. I am originally from Italy. My parents are from the UK, so I'm a bit of a mixed migrant. I have dual nationality, British and Italian. My background is in NGO and charity sector, working in Italy, especially with people who are seeking asylum. In the last few years, I got very frustrated with kind of like the work that I was doing and kind of the funding system and the dependency of NGOs and charities, and therefore started developing a big interest in the world of social enterprise. Probably might not have to explain exactly what that is, but just like as a quick pop in, these are businesses that are creating social and environmental value at the same time as generating income as a normal business. Examples, for example, Catalysr, or anyone that's heard of like Who Gives a Crap. Anyway, being inspired by these social enterprises and stuff, I decided to travel to Australia in November 2019 for a bit of a break from work, and also on what I kind of called an inspirational sabbatical to learn and to be inspired by social enterprises and their work. So that's when I arrived in Australia, which makes it about a year and a half, just under a year and a half ago.
Amazing. That's really exciting to come a year back, and then you're like, this is the problem that I'm going to solve. Awesome. Let's hear from Tony. Tony, why don't you tell us about yourself, just a little bit of background and when you came here, and just
Hello everyone, my name is Tony Jose. Arianna, thank you for leading the way. So I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognize their continuing connection to land, waters, and communities. And I think that's a very important thing for us to do. So everyone, my name is Tony Joes. If you see me yawning, it's just because I became a dad a couple of days back, so sleepless nights. That's why you'll see me a bit tired and drowsy at times. So I was born in Kerala, which is South India. I did my schooling in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Riyadh to be exact, because my parents were working there. I worked in India for a few years, then in the Middle East, and then I realized I was not really enjoying my work, probably because I did engineering. I realized quite fast that I was not a good engineer. So I thought probably I need to do something else. And I ended up coming to Australia to do my master's in engineering management and project management. But again, a big shift. I ended up working in HK. So that's kind of things in a nutshell. So I came to Australia in 2009. So it's close to 12 years now. And I'm based out of Wollongong, which is 1.5 hours drive from south of Sydney.
It's
Thank you.
amazing. And while we are at it, why don't you tell us about your startup? What does it do? And more importantly, why did you feel the need to solve that specific problem?
Yeah. So my startup, or I do have a co-founder. Her name is Vaishnavi Shimpi. My business name is Webyroo. It is a full-service agency based out of Wollongong. So we do websites, e-commerce, sites, digital marketing. We also help with copywriting work, and we also do consultancy work. The reason why we decided to do that is because we did know that Australia is a big enough market for another digital agency, but we also wanted to bring in the best talents from around the world, to be honest with you. And we have made sure that we partner with the right team of people globally to bring best knowledge and information and services to the Australian market. So that is kind of things in a nutshell in terms of why we started Webyroo.
Awesome. And over to you, Ariana.
Um, yeah, so my startup is called Think Enough. We're a online directory and map which connects everyday people to businesses that operate for good. So we basically make it easy for people to find the better option. Examples: you're looking for a coffee, we can find on our map directory. You'll be able to find a coffee that helps help youth homelessness be solved, or if you're wanting dinner, you can go for dinner in a place that actually generates and helps support for people creating pathways into employment for refugees and people seeking asylum. Um,
And why?
we
Yeah, why
yeah
let us solve this problem?
so the reason why, we kind of have a double reason. So for the people that are using the platform is because we see this general want and need to do something good, but not really, generally not really knowing where to start. And these are people that maybe, if you don't have time to volunteer, if you don't have money to donate, but you want to create a bit of good in your everyday action. We're basically creating a very easy way to get people engaged and involved. And then on the side of the businesses, we're basically, the businesses have these kind of businesses, the social enterprises have a strong need of customers, because the more customers, the more income and the more impact they can have and the more problems they can keep tackling. So we basically want to make these businesses the mainstream. Yeah, that's the reason that those are the problems and the solution that we're bringing up, and the reason why we started Think Enough is basically because on my trip over here, while I was visiting these cafes, visiting these restaurants, these clothing stores, I was really struggling to find them, and found quite quickly, after a few months of being in Melbourne, that people from Melbourne themselves were asking me where they should go for coffee or where they should go for an ethical store. So I was lucky enough to get in touch with some great co-founders, and we're like, right, we're going to make this, we're going to start a map. It's something that's needed, and that's where it came from.
It's really exciting. Yeah, I would totally agree. Like, even if we think today as they go, I want to find a business that actually is doing good in the society. It's really hard to like find that business. So yeah, great job, guys. And moving on to our next question, and that is, so you guys are definitely very like in early stage of your startup. So what would you say that is the hardest part of starting a startup as a migrant in Australia?
I go first. um, wow. Definitely, you mentioned the contacts to begin with, Dev. I definitely realized, so the big reason why I came over to Australia in the first place was to connect with businesses and people. So I realized like how much effort and time I spent in actually going out and talking to people and meeting people.
Right.
I think it was definitely that took a lot of effort, and like I got a lot of help, you know, even through Catalysr, and that kind of like eventually got easier. I think so that on one side, I think my biggest struggle in general is juggling all the different parts of a business and the startup.
Right.
So I guess that just, it does include a little bit like the difficulty for everyone startup, not just like specific to migrants, but I think the whole side of kind of having the idea, the strategy, and that like top level, as well as actually getting through to the nitty gritty of doing it and executing, kind of all comes together, and there's just a lot on your plate. So I guess that's my biggest, hardest part, I think.
Okay. And what about you, Tony?
What was that question again? I just need to
Like
refocus.
what was the hardest part? So you know, it's not easy to start startup for anybody, you know, whether you're a migrant or you're, you know, not a migrant. But what was in your journey, what was the hardest part for you as a migrant to start a startup?
Yeah, so I'll give you a few things. Like, so I came to Australia as an international student, you know, so it's a new space. You're coming into a new place. The cultural context is different. You don't have any friends. You don't have any family. You are studying, you know, full time. You have to have, you know, put food in your mouth. So you might end up having a part-time job. So you're more or less fully packed. Your days, you know, your days and weeks are fully packed. And then out of that space to find something completely different, like, you know, I was telling Dave the other time, like, you know, you were an international student too, and despite those busy schedules, you still found to start something, you know, as a side hustle, and that needs a lot of courage and vision. So I think those time constraints were the biggest challenge to start off with. But then eventually, after I finished my studies, I ended up, you know, getting a PR and then citizenship. And so I was a bit more grounded. But then still I struggle with networking. You know, I did not have access to people and communities and stuff of that sort. So in hindsight, when I look at that situation, I wish I had networked more. I wish I had attended more events. I wish I was purposely making decisions to connect with people, you know, because see, when you're out of your comfort zone, you might always think, okay, what would others think of me? What would others think of my idea? And so you find it hard to connect. But sometimes you have to be purposeful. You know, you have to push and open doors. And Australia is very, in a way, it's much easier, you know, if you make the effort, and once you get that foot in the door, it becomes a bit easier. So you have to be very purposeful, and you know, aim for things. And I think it is achievable in a place like Australia. So networking, I think, was the initial challenge, but then I kind of network with anyone, you know. Initially I had I think it was a cultural barrier for some reason. You know, I would be able to engage in conversations, but you know, there was always a mismatch of communication. You know, the Australian way of life is very different to probably the Middle Eastern or Indian way of doing things. So it takes a bit of time for us to understand that context, but we need to keep on trying. Don't be, you know, don't shy away from it. That's what I
I
would
think
say.
there are a couple of things that you guys mentioned, and first and most important was network. And it's just not about network; it's network with the right people who you can learn from. You know, for example, and another thing is just being out there and trying to do more and more things. And kudos to everybody who's attending this event. Honestly, like we know that this whole COVID thing has been going on for almost a year now. Things have gone online, and it just not the best way to attend events. Like online is not the best way if we could like meet. But yeah, I'm really glad all of you guys are here. And another important thing is like one thing that Catalysr is doing, that anybody who joins our Pre-Accelerator program, which right now the applications are open and they're closing this Sunday. One of the major benefits that I personally find is the network of mentors. And these mentors are somebody who we know you can learn from, who have done something in their field. And that's why they are mentors with Catalysr. And I think that is what is the most important part, apart from other things, obviously, but starting a startup and knowing who to reach out to, somebody who you know have been through that journey, or you need some advice in marketing specifically, and you are, for example, a developer, then probably those two things are very, very different. And then you can reach out to the right people. So personally, that's why I love the network that you can build through Catalysr as well. But that brings us to our next question. So you did not have network. You guys weren't born in Australia, so obviously you didn't do schooling and everything. Yeah. So how did you end up meeting your co-founders?
Are we still going to keep this? Yeah.
I think that's
yeah,
you.
I feel like Tony's questions, the answers are also nice and well structured, so it's good to finish off. I was extremely lucky with my co-founders. We're a team of 4 co-founders.
Okay.
And the first co-founder, Nade, I actually met because I was living in the same house as her. So
nice.
when I moved to Australia, the kind of messages that you have to send out on like share houses and tell people who you are, I was very, very upfront with who I was and what I wanted to do, which was really great because it ended up me, kind of being paired up with a great housemate. So that was the first step with Nade, and then Ritha came on board, who was introduced to me by a really good friend who I met, or like a really good new friend who I met at one of these crazy social enterprise networking dinner things that I went to, and then the 4th co-founder, Caitlin, I met while volunteering for the Human Rights Arts and Film Festival. So on the side, feeling, still with this idea of having to like reach out and network and meet people and like have conversations with the right people, like you said, Dev. I kind of put some time aside to do some volunteering for the Human Rights Arts and Film Festival, and got in touch with Caitlin, who was like a great addition to the team. So yeah, I feel really lucky because we all met.
Awesome. So you mentioned a couple of things. So first is that you obviously like to attend a lot of events and network, which I'm sure is super, super required. But then you would be meeting a lot of people in these events. Why did you decide that these people were the people you wanted to start your social enterprise with?
Tricky. So Nade initially, so the Nade who I lived with, that was pretty easy because I was just talking to her about my journey, and she was the one, that was like, we should make a map out of this. Let's try and build something. She has the background in development and in branding, and in tech, which is why kind of her mind went to that side of the idea. So it actually turned into an idea with her together. With River, I just ended up having a very, very long conversation with her over a picnic where we were introduced. Her background's in finance, so kind of ended up seeing this big, she was that exact perfect example of a person who has like a job that's very demanding, that that like to maintain her family and to to bring forward kind of her life here, but she also was missing that sense of purpose. So I think by talking to me about what what we were doing, what me and Nade were thinking, she really quickly wanted to get involved, and my interest in her because of her like background, completely different background in like finance and in a side that had nothing to do with exactly what we were doing.
Amazing.
And and then Caitlin was, I guess that was, it wasn't really as a networking event. We were actually working together over
right.
some time. So we were discussing, personal life, and I was talking to her about Think Enough
Right.
on the side. And her experience in marketing and stuff was definitely a big drive for her to join.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Over to you, Tony.
Yeah. So guys, like, for me, Webyroo is my second startup. So the first startup, like, Gong Life Care Solutions, I did all by myself with the support of my wife. But I realized, like, it's a very exhausting process because, you're the boss. You have to basically get up every day, motivate yourself, work on your social media handles, manage your clients or potential clients. You have to communicate with your suppliers. So there's a lot of things on your plate. So then I made a conscious decision. If I'm going to start something else, it's going to be with a co-founder or a team of people. So that was a
Amazing.
conscious decision I made, because it's easier to, when you're a team, you kind of keep each other accountable. You're able to motivate each other. You can, you probably would have one strength and you can rely on the other person's strength, and kind of like, puts a puzzle together in a way. So that is where I came across Catalysr, Usman, like, because Usman also studied at the University of Wollongong. So there was kind of like that natural connection. I wanted to know who this gentleman was. And that is where I came to know about Catalysr. I attended one of their, I think, open sessions. And so me, I connect very naturally with the international community, with any walks of people. For
Yeah.
some reason, this it's much easier. You could be from the Middle East, Africa, South America, or wherever. I naturally connect because I love engaging with people, learning about their stories and backgrounds, and seeing if there are potential synergies and if I can be of help in any way. So I think Catalysr was that organic transition in a way for me. Everyone was from different parts of the world, so I really felt at home. And I think I met, sorry, I think you asked about finding my co-founder. So
Yeah.
my co-founder, Vaishnavi Shimpi, she was also part of the Pre-Accelerator program. She was also wanting to start a business of her own. And I thought, okay, maybe she had an idea, and I talked about, why don't we start, a business like, I mean, that time we didn't even have the name Webyroo.
Yeah.
So we explored that, and she was open to that idea. And then we thought, okay, why not? And you got to also understand that you need to start somewhere. So say, for example, what Webyroo is doing is not rocket science. We're not sending satellites to the moon, or we're not, tying up with Elon Musk or anything of that sort. But you need to start somewhere, so that eventually, there might be opportunities for us to develop a product at some stage. So I'm also positioning myself accordingly, so that, I have software developers who are, who has 25 years of experience, people who are data analysts who have 10 to 15 years of experience. Hopefully one day we might be able to come across a domain expert who has excellent knowledge about an industry, and we might be able to create a product. But that does not happen overnight. So you need to position yourself and start that journey. So eventually at one stage, if it happens, it happens. So yeah, that's probably my take on that.
Okay. That is really exciting. And this is a question that I wanted to ask both of you, was that when, like, getting a co-founder is really hard. And there are surveys out there that says that your relationship with your co-founder will determine the success of your startup. The better the relationship, the similar values that you have. So is there, what would you guys say that if somebody is looking for a co-founder, what are the things that they should look for in a person to make sure that they find the right co-founder?
I think for me, and like obviously we're very extremely mission driven. Like
Yeah.
the fact that links us all is that we have that same focus of where we see the startup going. I think the important thing is having the absolutely same values, but then having diversity within like people's capacity, like capabilities of things that they do, or the world that they come from. Like I think
So the skill
it's
set.
really, the skill set is really important to be different,
Okay.
while kind of bringing together the same key values. I think that's why I've been lucky in the first place, because we started off probably with the values, and then we're lucky enough that the skill set was was so different and varied. Yeah, so I definitely would say, you know, in my experience, obviously mine was formed a little bit differently, but I didn't go out looking for co-founders.
Right.
It kind of like happened organically, but I do think that that's our key thing. We always use, like, we do say that our team is one of our key strengths of the startup, is the fact that we have such a diverse range of knowledge and skills, but extremely connected on that central mission.
Awesome. I really like that. What about you, Tony?
Yep. So for me, I would say something similar to what Arianna said. One is like, you need to have complementary skills. So say, for example, if one person in the team is good in marketing, and, you know, say, for example, if you're a software business, it is also good to have a co-founder who might have many years of experience in developing software. So you have marketing, software, and then you say, okay, we do want to develop a product, say, for example, for the financial sector. So it might be good to have a banker on board. You know what I mean? Like, you need to have complementary skills that actually takes your vision forward. So instead of having, say, for example, if I'm a marketing expert, there's no point in having another marketing expert on board, like, you know, because that might also create frictions. So the other thing is, like, you need to have a chemistry. I mean, even though, you know, we are all highly educated, you know, every time I come back to the same thing, you know, with people, that I might be, you know, a postgraduate in something, I might be the best in something, but if I'm not able to go along with another person, if I'm not able to communicate with another person, if I'm not able to compliment the other person, if I'm not, in simple terms, if I'm not able to forgive, if I'm not able to, you know, work as a team, then even if these two people are of the brightest minds, or are the brightest minds, it just doesn't work together. You know what I mean? So you need to have those social skills as well, if I can say that, those soft skills of, you know, being accommodating, being able to work around each other's times. Forgiving sounds like a bit more emotional word, but kind of, you know, accepting that, okay, this person, you know, I need to support this person in this way because, you know, he's not good at it. Like, you know, there needs to be that complementary understanding nature as well, because startup is a hard journey. So if you're not able to support each other and add value through that, then it might be difficult. So you need to have a chemistry between the founders as well, I think.
I would absolutely agree to this, because finding the right co-founder is one of the most important things. And I personally think that having the right values and mission to solve a problem is the most important thing. You know, like, if both the co-founders is like, you know what, I'm running Webyroo, and these are the things that I want to solve, these are the things that I want to happen in the business, and these are the things that I need to do, and both has the same mission, or however many people, I think that is the most important thing. So we have a question in our chat box. So the question is, do you both work full-time immediately with your startup? If yes, how do you negotiate with founder salary when you get funding? So let's take one step at a time. Let's start with so it's not possible for everybody to just go full-time in your startup, right? Honestly, if I had to do my startup full-time, I would think 50 times, because I would make sure about my visas, specifically, you know, being an international student and then being on a temporary residency, all those things. So how did you guys do it? Did you guys just got this idea and it's like, I'm going to do this full-time, or did you have another job? What's the story behind that?
Well, when I left Italy, I still actually had my job, the job that I was doing in Italy. They actually allowed me to have a year off, so I came over to Australia on a working holiday visa.
Wow.
Because I was generally coming over to meet and connect with all of these businesses. The startup wasn't in my mind. It kind of came out as a consequence of what I was doing. So I also had the luck that I had, you know, budgeted for this week, this year away for my working holiday, for what I had in mind, what I had for the plans, and I also had the backup of my work back in Italy. So I was like in a very lucky position for the first year. Then when the kind of startup started, developing, or when generally when we went through the Catalysr accelerator program,
Yeah.
and it actually turned from like a project and an idea into a startup and a business. That's and thanks to Catalysr, I also had some great conversations with people who suggested for me to apply for a specific innovation visa, which is the supporting innovation visa in South Australia. So I gave it a go and was just like over the moon and incredibly surprised that I had managed to get that endorsement to actually continue doing the startup work, and like being able to stay in Australia for that. So obviously with that in mind, going past that year, I actually had to think about, I can't just be working full time on the startup all the time. That's completely unsustainable. If it's not, while it's still a startup and not generating enough to kind of like pay all of our salaries. So I've now kind of transitioned into part-time work as well, which is though very, very aligned with the startup, with what I'm doing. I'm working for a social enterprise. I'm working with migrant backgrounds. So it's just kind of like it goes hand in hand.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I guess.
Awesome. And is it really hard to have a job and do a startup? Like how are you balancing both things?
Yes. There's so much stuff going on. I also have the terrible, I guess, with this kind of obsession with like networking and doing things, I have this really good on one side and really terrible habit of just getting involved in so many things, in like volunteering or helping out at conferences or getting in, and those kind of things are incredibly valuable. They're giving me all of the, like a lot of like contacts and extra things. So for example, even, going through an accelerator program, that obviously takes some time and some effort and some brain power. But then I guess, so yeah, I am very, very stretched for time. Definitely have a lot of work to do personally on my work-life balance.
Right. Makes sense.
Definitely something that's like a bit of a struggle.
Amazing. Yeah, but I'm really glad you're doing both. Yeah, I think it's for everybody. Like if you really want to do something, not everybody is fortunate enough. It's like, you know what, like I have certain amount of savings. I'm just gonna like blow that for like a couple of years. I mean, it's very rare, right? Almost everybody that I know have done a couple of jobs at side. And whoever we talk about, for example, we talk about Airbnb founders. It's a $30 billion company, and then they had they were $20,000 or $15,000 US in debt, credit card debts, when they were like starting their journey. So I think a lot of we just gotta take those risks. How about you, Tony? Did you have to work while starting a startup, or what's the story there?
Yeah. So for me, I think it was probably a bit more of a team effort. Like, my wife was supportive of what I was doing. Probably she didn't have any options. But I kind of, in the industry I was working, I made sure that I worked the weekend. So I was lucky enough to do that. So Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, I work Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So it's kind of like a part-time job. And then I thought, okay, I could focus on the rest of the days, 4 days, from Tuesday to Friday on the business side of things. So that's how I consciously planned it out, so that, I can put food on the table, plus also invest time and energy into a startup. And the second thing I did, with the second startup, Webyroo, I knew that, myself and my wife, we were expecting our child. I knew that once the child comes, there's not going to be time for anything, let alone a startup. So I wanted to do it before the child arrived. I'm just giving you some personal in-depth things before the child arrives, because at least if I can put the groundwork, lay the groundwork, then and with the co-founders around, then there is more opportunity for me to hopefully sit back a little bit and then scale it up. You know what I mean? But so you need to be also, I think, strategic in how you look at it. I mean, who are your stakeholders? In a person's case, it could be his family. So you need to have a good discussion with your wife or your partner and let them know, okay, this is what you're planning, and these are going to be the challenges in terms of time, and if hopefully bring them on board as well, because ultimately, if you're sitting at a meeting at 12 p.m., because globally these days, I network with a lot of people overseas as well. So
Yeah.
it could be an interview session at 11 p.m. here, because in the US it's early morning. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of demand on your time. So your family also has to support you in that. So it's better to be plan things in advance. That's what I would say.
Amazing. That's really interesting. And the second question was that if you guys, like are working on your startup full time, how do you negotiate founder salary when you get funding? I think I'll just answer that question quickly. So I think primarily majority of the people that we talk about when they start a startup, a lot of them don't take a salary. They just don't, because not every startup starts making money from day one. For a lot of startup, it takes a long time. And recently, I came across this really amazing tool. It is called Slice of Pie, if I'm not wrong. And what that does is that it accounts for the hours that you put in, and when you have to like negotiate funding or salary or stuff like that, that is when it can come really handy. So I definitely would recommend just see that, and if that can come to your help. Also, just a request to anybody who is not on mute, if you guys can just unless you have a question that you want to ask, if you can just try uh, muting yourself, that would be great. Awesome. Moving on to the next question, and I love that you guys are asking questions. If you guys have any questions, just feel free to write that in the chat box. That would really help not just you but everybody else who's attending this event as well. And one thing that Arianna had mentioned was how the accelerator program was quite helpful for her. So one thing about Tony and Arianna, both are our alumni. They have done pre-accelerator and accelerator program of Catalysr. And any of you guys who want to start a startup or have an idea, who wants to implement that idea and want to learn more about the startup ecosystem, or want to get in touch with other founders or mentors, this is the last week for our pre-accelerator program applications. I'll just drop in the link in the chat box. You can check it out and see if you would like to apply for the program. The program is happening across Australia. So whether you're in Melbourne, whether you are in Sydney, Adelaide, anywhere, there are going to be cohort in your city. And if you're in remote Australia, we're going to have this whole program online as well. So it's going to be mix of online and offline, and I would highly recommend you guys to apply for that program. And that gives me a great gateway for my next question, and that is to both our alumni, that you have been to our pre-accelerator and accelerator program before. So how was your experience? And if you had to choose one best thing about our program, what would that be?
So the experience was wonderful. It was basically I think it was the kick that we needed to turn the idea into a business. Like I said beforehand, I think that was our main thing, is that we had this idea and we had this way of doing it, and we were just wanting to make something. And then the Catalysr journey kind of helped start our mind on actually registering as a business and actually transforming it into an actual startup. So that's why it was like really important for us. And awesome. I think the best thing about it was definitely kind of like we touched on that kind of support system and the mentors and stuff. I'd say Jeanette, our mentor, was absolutely incredible. Like we still talk about how great she was. I think it was really great for our team to be able to have a person that we spoke to on a regular basis, who we went back to, who we were kind of accountable to, even though it's not like you don't need anyone to tell you what to do, but it's really good to be able to have those regular check-ins to like update and to show the progress. And then like genuinely also helping with like a lot of moral support. Like obviously like the program that I did was just like the last one that's passed. So we were doing it through COVID. It was like very difficult situation. We had only the three co-founders at that time had only met in person once, all three together.
Wow.
So she was just, yeah, she was, I was going through my, like visa application and like, the stress of that. So it's just like the actual moral support as well as the accountability and the connections that she helped us make were just, yeah, they're invaluable. So I would
Amazing.
definitely say definitely a big mention for the mentors.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. How about you, Tony?
Yeah, I think for me, it is the community. So
Right.
the reason why I'm actually talking today is because, Catalyzer has given me that opportunity. So I think I was part of the Pre-Accelerator program, and I found that the content is not overwhelming. It's pretty easy to understand, but if
Mm.
you want to dive deep, you can do that as well. And being among people who are also on a similar journey, exploring entrepreneurship, exploring ideas, it's great because you're all on the same page, and you would be
Mm.
surprised how much information or input others can give into your situation. Because sometimes, the angle, the view at which you look at a situation changes a certain thing. So I might be talking about marketing, and there might be another person who might have worked in marketing in the airline industry. They would say, okay, Tony, why don't you think about this angle? So that community is just wonderful, and knowing that you're supported. And Arianna mentioned about mentors. So a lot of people who have experience in their verticals, when they are focused in supporting others, they are much more what we call purposeful in their approach. So you get a lot out of it. And I
Mm.
think, then continuing that journey on Catalyzer has a community. We're all connected through Slack as well. So that you can reach out to people and you will be supported. So that's very important. That networking opportunity and being part of that community, I would think.
Amazing. Yeah, I would totally agree. I've done a couple of this pre-accelerator and accelerator program. And one thing that has helped me probably in all the programs was just the support that you get from the people who are equally passionate as probably if you're like hanging out with your friends, those friends may not want to do a startup. Your friends that you were hanging out when you were a child or anything, they might not want to do a startup, but you want people around you who want to probably change the world, or like who wants to just do something in their field and they're super passionate about. So I think that is something that that is very, very valuable. And for all those people who want that support network, who want to learn more about startups, I would highly recommend to apply for the Pre-Accelerator program. And that brings us to the last question. And after that, we are going to take a couple of questions that we have received in the chat box. And that is, what would be your advice to the people who are just starting the startup, as in who has an idea, who wants to implement it, and just not sure how to do it? So what would be your advice for those people?
Advice, difficult. Passion. You need to go for an idea, go for a project, go for a plan, something that you're passionate about. You're going to need it because I think that's what helps drive me every day, is going back to the idea of why we're doing this and what we're doing it for. You just really,
Awesome.
really, really connected. And then get the right people involved. I think, we've talked about co-founders, we've talked about mentors, we've talked about accelerator programs, we've talked about, have a look what's out there. There's so much out there. There's so much advice. Try and make the call on what's best aligned with you and what's going to be most useful for you at the stage in which you're at.
Amazing. Okay, that's great. I think I nobody can disagree with this. Passion is like the most important thing. If you're not passionate about it, it's going to be hard. It's going to be super hard. And if you're not passionate about it, probably you would want to give up someday. So yeah. What about you, Tony? What do you think what would be your advice?
Yeah. So one is you got to know why you're doing it. So say, for example, if you've identified a pain point, do a bit of research as well. Do a bit of research in the market, read articles. And one thing I found in Australia is there's a lot of information out there. You just need to do a bit of homework and bit of research on what you're looking for.
Mm.
The second thing is just do it. literally. You know what I mean? Your idea might be the worst idea in the world, doesn't matter. At least you learn through that process of doing something. You know, if it is an idea you want to put out there, talk to your friends, talk to your networks, mate, I have this idea, what do you think? Get feedbacks, but be consistent. So don't think, I think, you know, I should not say don't, but we should also be agile in the sense that, you know, okay, you know this idea is good, but you need to test it out in the market. So be agile in terms of like being open to suggestions and ideas. And then again, you know, be connected to people who have done it already. So in that sense, you know, a community like Catalysr would be good because mentors would be able to give you feedbacks. You know, that's also important. Other cohort members would be able to give you insights and feedbacks. You might read more. So you need to start that journey. So don't shy away. Do something. Be part of, you know, if you want to fine tune your skill sets, listen to podcasts, maybe connect with a community like Catalyzer or Y Combinator or whatever, but make those steps, make those, decisions to attend sessions, you know, network with people. So you need to start somewhere. That is what I'm trying to say. In otherwise, you know, what happens is you have this idea, it just sits there and you just don't take any action. So whatever that idea is, you need to actually take that first step of, you know, putting that idea out into the world. It could be a post on that, you know, an article you write on LinkedIn, you get feedback straight away. It might be you sharing about on social media, you get feedback. And to start a business in Australia, to be honest with you, it's pretty easy. You can start it in probably half a day because you can get your ABN registration, you can have your URL, bang, you go, you know, you can put a website out there in probably 2 hours. I'm sure you would agree to that. So and then get your network to know about it, you know, connect on social media. So you can do it pretty much, start a business in a couple of hours in Australia, to be honest with you. If it was in another country, I think, you know, the formalities are much more complex, but Australia is, you know, you can literally do everything online. So you need to start something. If you, I mean, you need to take those steps. That's what I'm trying to tell you, but be consistent as well. So don't think that, okay, I've done some things and now I'll look at it in a month's time. Now, if you're going to start something, make sure you're disciplined. Okay, I'm going to spend 5 hours every week doing it. Make sure you do that every week. You know, I'm going to do a bit of research on this. Make sure you do it. So as people say, you know, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So you need to be prepared for the long haul. And you need to be consistent in I think in your approach in terms of what you're trying to do.
Amazing. I love that so much because I absolutely agree with your point of being just consistent. And also one thing that I wanted to add, so like the first thing is when you already have passion for something, the important thing is to try and validate your solution to solve the problem the best way you can, rather than, I mean, you like, to have the AB and to do the right things is must, but at the same time your focus has to be on how can I solve this problem the best way I can. Awesome. We have got a really interesting question, and I like this question a lot. The question is, what are your views on bootstrapping versus VC funding? So have you guys ever considered it? What are your views on that?
Sorry,
So
I was on mute.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Do you want to go, Tenny? I was going to say we're in very early stages, so we're definitely, we've been bootstrapping from the start. We're quite at the start. We have definitely talked about VC funding. We've talked about
raising money.
Yeah, we've had raising money. We've we have like we've had big philosophical conversations on this because of the issues and the things that we're trying to tackle, and the fact that we're actually trying to highlight a big different kind of economy. So we're very we'd be very worried on the impact that a specific investor could have on the mission of the business, which is why we're definitely going into a lot more deep work into what we can get through impact investing and like explore that field a little bit more.
Great.
So yeah, yes, I'm
amazing.
at the early stage.
Awesome. Tony, would you like to add anything there?
So both our businesses like Gong Life Care Solutions and Webyroo, they are both been, bootstrap businesses. So we have never actually looked for external funding because that's kind of not our model of business. It's not kind of like a SaaS model, or it's not really a product that we need funding for. So we have services that we provide, and then we reach out to the market. So it's more or less like a self-sufficient kind of business in a way, if you can say that. So we never had that opportunity to look for, or did not need external funding. So yeah, so that's kind of my
yeah,
take on it.
I would have a very similar opinion on this as well, because the first thing that you need to do is to make sure. So think about this: when you're starting a business, it doesn't worth a lot, right? If you're bringing somebody, your business is worth, let's say, like $50,000 or $100,000, and then you're like, oh, but I want to survive and do my startup full time, so I'm going to bring somebody, and if they can invest a 50,000 or like $70,000, and you're just giving majority of business away because your business is not worth a lot initially. So think about that. So I think primary thing is to build some traction. Once you have built some traction, once you know that, oh, right, so this is how I'm making money, this is my product market fit, and all these things you learn during the Pre-Accelerator program. What is product market fit? Why do you need to validate and everything? And then you should think about raising money. I'm very conscious of the time. We have just 5 minutes more. If you guys have any further questions, please feel free to write it in the chat box. There is one question. I see that Arianna has already answered, but I would just like to ask that again, so that all the people who have not read that can get to know. So the question is for Arianna: what are you guys doing to make the average person know your service exists?
Yeah, sorry, I answered in the chat because I realized the time, and I realized it was very directed. But yeah, what we've anyway, thank you, Maria, for the support. Like, it's really nice to hear that you love the idea. We're basically, yeah, as I said, we're really early stage, and we've been tackling a bit that issue of kind of like, what do you go after first? Because we've got the double customer, the businesses and the users. But we've recently had some really, really good opportunities for some partnerships with networks and some specific social enterprises that would be sharing kind of their community with us, so their customers with us, and tap into that. While at the same time, in the background, we've got some big plans for our next marketing strategy, which will be a lot more focused and directed for users. But we're still at the beginning age, like Dev was saying, this testing phase to test it out. We've got like an MVP that's nearly ready. It's to be able to actually test it, to figure out what people want and how they use it, to be able to like keep getting it better and better and better. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're just 3 or 4 minutes away from finishing this online event. If you guys have any further questions, you can always put it in the chat box. I would just like to thank Arianna and Tony for all the beautiful insights that you guys gave. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you all the people who attended this event. I'm really glad that you guys took the time out on a weekday to listen to these beautiful stories, and that you're so passionate about your startup. Just on that note, if you guys are planning to apply for the Pre-Accelerator program and you haven't, then I'm just pasting the link again. In the chat box, you can go to that link. It is for everybody who has a startup idea, who's in the early stage, who needs guidance and mentorship, and probably even if you have $1 million revenue every month, you probably will need mentorship at that time as well. So it's just really important to have the set of network, to have motivated people around, to learn from those people and those mentors. And that's exactly what the Pre-Accelerator program is for, so that you can learn more about startups and how to do the startup the right way, rather than just like doing it and then hitting the roadblocks. And it just helps you probably get less roadblocks along the way. So yes, are we going to meet face to face, provided that we don't have any issues with our COVID-19 thing. We are planning, so the program is mix of online and offline. So every major city is going to have a cohort that will meet once a week, and so every Wednesday, every Friday, you will have masterclass available to you. So all the people who are in the Pre-Accelerator program. So you'll go through that, and then following Wednesday or Thursday, you guys will meet, your cohort will meet in the city. So people in Adelaide would meet Sydney, Melbourne, etc. And yeah, so that's how it's going to work. Awesome. We're 1 minute away. Were there any other questions?
Dave, I think you did a great job in hosting this. Well done, mate. Very professionally done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for attending the event, and we'll hopefully see you in our next event.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
You can reach out to us on LinkedIn if you want to connect with us.
Amazing.
Absolutely.